Hey everyone, it's Saoirse, and today we are going to talk about Jenny Slate's new book, Lifeform. You may remember my video about Little Weirds. I discovered the book earlier this year and was so completely blown away by it and decided immediately this is one of my favorite books of all time. The things that she's describing and the way that she describes them just speaks so much to my heart, and it feels so true to how I think. That it was a little bit scary. Like, how is this person in my head? And of course, we spend a lot of time in our heads, and it keeps us from realizing that like other people are experiencing the same or similar thoughts. Sometimes I think, have I ever had an original thought? What I mean is, like, we're not all as alone as we think, because there are so many billions of us. It would be pretty damn near impossible for us to be the only person to think the way that we think. So I was just very grateful to read that book, and at the time that I read it, and so imagine my excitement when I found out that she was putting out a new book. Like, I had just discovered her and already had a new book to look forward to. And this came at a time when I don't know, I was thinking like I need to take a trip, and I saw that she was touring, and it was really like nowhere near Florida, but I had wanted to go to Boston, and she was touring there, so I got a ticket for that show and then built a trip to Boston around it, which was just so wonderful. Just a great trip, where I got to see my friend Emily, who I hadn't seen in 8 years. Since we met in Italy, and I got to go to Cape Cod and all that, and it was just really great. So I saw Jenny Slate's show, and I wasn't sure what to expect, really. I didn't look up like what is her show going to be like, but it was just her and a harpist, and Jenny read some of the selections from the book. And it was very interesting to hear it in her voice, because you're reading somebody's work in your own voice with your own inflection and emphasis, and then she read it in a way that I wouldn't have expected, like not the way that I would have read it. And her way is like it's the original way, so it's very cool to see somebody read their own work, with the emphasis that they imagined it when they were writing it. Okay, so at the beginning, there's this quote here that I'm just going to read. It says, "Here I may add that I consider that I am still a useful member of society, and I believe still capable of being pleasant and amusing when the occasion seems fit. The fact that I have no teeth and never could wear dentures does not in any way discomfort me. I don't have to bite anybody." And that's Leonora Carrington from The Hearing Trumpet. And I love that, because we don't have to be all the same way. I'm not trying to bite anybody. It doesn't matter that I have no teeth. Leave me alone. That's just, yeah. Great way to start the book. And then this book is in 5 sections. So you have phase 1, single, phase 2, true love, phase 3, pregnancy, phase 4, baby, and phase 5, ongoing. And these are all personal essays. It's nonfiction, but with that characteristic magical realism, kind of whimsical, poetic writing that Jenny Slate does, that you'll remember from Little Weirds. Now, because of this one has to do with, because it has to do with love and pregnancy and babies and all that, I did not relate to it nearly as much as her first book, which is really all about her being single and like thinking, what is wrong with me, and why is love not working out for me? That is the phase of life that I've been in forever. So I related a lot more to that book, but I still liked this one. And we will just read some of the things that stood out to me. I asked because even though I have all of these pictures and they are evidence of my living, there is a lot of my life that seems like it happened while I was stuck inside of something. I get really sad when I look at old photos. And it's nuts because I take thousands and thousands of photos. I mean, I have like 150,000 photos just on my phone. Do I ever go back and look at most of these photos? No. Do I look at the photos on my old laptop from a million years ago? No. What about my old cameras from like middle school and high school, where I don't even know where those photos are, if they still exist? I take all of these, but then I either don't look at them, or if I do look at them, I feel immensely sad because for most of my life I've been depressed, and I look at them and that's all I can see. There's a lot of my life that seems like it happened while I was stuck inside of something. And for me, that's like inside the cloud of depression. I can just keep going as I am. I can just keep feeling my way along and let it rip every now and then, but I do feel that if I could be officially diagnosed, it would be like a warm washing, an essential ceremony to officially get me up and running, and then I would be able to relax into what I am. It would be like telling a lion that they are a lion, so then when they roar and when they hunt, they know that it is natural and that it is their big work, and it would be really weird for them to not be doing it. I love that phrase, their big work, because I think of that as just like your purpose. And I try to get out of the thinking of there being one purpose to our life, because if I do that and I'm not living the purpose, then I really start spiraling. But I like to think of the big work as being just life itself, and learning to live with our life, if that makes sense. There's this part about these people who buy our parents' home, and they're going to are they going to tear it down? They're going to destroy it somehow because of money, and they're going to, like, you know, they were never intending to live there, like they said. So I wrote back to say that I would like to come and take the items and buy them before they destroy the home, and I made sure to say destroy the home just in case he was actually alive in his heart. But I would love to do a bit more work in that area of trying to help him see the effect he has on people, of making contact with what might be alive in his heart, I suppose. And then on the same page, she's thinking of like what witches would do to this guy to punish him. Every morning right before waking, he would dream a flock of sheep with teeth of pewter advancing on his home, and he would know that they want to eat his physical ass with their dull, blunt old metal teeth. Like a true loser, he would wake up holding his butt cheeks together because he does not want his crack to get ripped into by dream sheep. I love that part. That part made me laugh. Yeah, I like how she talks about heartless people. And some people, I mean, a lot of people you meet, you wonder, are you alive in your heart? Like, how are you even doing these horrible things? I'm thinking of a specific situation right now. All right, I'm going to read this whole paragraph. I think that the storm came down and woke me up because it knew that I finally wanted more than to sit and stew and bitterly snarl about what I find to be bad. I believe that my storm came when it knew that I wanted to be free and that I was ready to do my new work. The new work is to be able to forgive not just the ones who hurt or frightened or trapped me, but of course it is the slow work of forgiving all the spectators inside of me who still spit. Why were you even around those stones in the first place? And why didn't you bust out earlier? One by one I must forgive the shames and cruelties I have slung at myself for choices made at desperate moments, or for spending so long waiting for literally anyone but myself to tell me that I am indeed the creature that I suspect I am. This is the only debt I have to pay, forgiveness by forgiveness, until I have brought myself far from any spooky stones and foggy fields, and I am in my own arms again. I can see clearly now that my strength has just begun to flow, and that I am about to fledge. She writes self-discovery and self-actualization so beautifully. And she said something during her live show, like, since she's a comedian, people really expect her to be funny all the time, and she says, I do want to make people laugh, but I also want to make something beautiful. And I think she just does a really good job of that in her books, where there are parts that are so funny, and sometimes, you know, people find bits funny that I don't because I'm thinking too seriously about it. But the whole thing has this kind of gauzy, ephemeral, beautiful quality to it, and I think she's really captured what it is that she's trying to do. But I love I love this line, spending so long waiting for literally anyone but myself to tell me that I am indeed the creature that I suspect I am. Like, why have I spent all of my life looking for some kind of validation from this person or that person, or from just the world at large, or just a faceless person, this entity that's going to tell me, yes, you're on the right track. This is who you are. When it's like, oh no, I already knew that. I already knew that. I know myself better than anybody ever could. So why the heck do I wait to hear that and then also try to fit myself into what they think that I am rather than just being my authentic self? I hate to see when I'm around different people and I'm trying to like figure out what it is that they like so I can be more that thing, or like bring out that part of myself more than I would normally highlight it, if that makes any sense. Okay. It is maybe sad to say, but when I am alone, I find it hard to have full meals, and I do not really know how to cook for one. So when I am single, I often have late bites at different intervals before the sun sets, like the elderly do. I like the elderly, and I like eating this way. So actually, it is not very sad in my view. I liked that part, and I spend a lot of time telling myself that. It's actually not sad. Because I look around at my life, and I think a lot of people would be like, oh, you're single and live alone, whatever, this, that, and the other. You don't have the like things that society says you should have by this age, and you should be so sad about that. So I take that outside perspective, which is ridiculous and is based on some standard that like not everybody's even interested in. I take that and project it onto myself and think, oh, I should be so sad about living in this beautiful home by myself. And then I have to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Look around and appreciate how freaking cozy you've made this place and how you get to do like whatever you want. You know, when I sit down and eat frozen macaroni and watch Too Hot to Handle, it's because I really want to be doing that. And I love this macaroni so much. I would eat it every day forever. And that's not out of depression or loneliness. I freaking love this macaroni. Anyway, so like when I'm doing the things that I have the freedom to do and I want to do, I have to remember, oh, that's right. Like this might be some person's version of sad, but not mine. So, but it's so hard to get that voice out of your head telling you the opposite. She's got some stuff in here that made me think of my own OCD. I was just finally diagnosed with OCD after many years of knowing that's what's going on. But she's overhearing this conversation, and this person saying they got clam chowder. Arlene got a hot dog and fries, but she did not say what she herself was having. When I overheard this, I thought there's a lot of neutral information out there as well, and this was very calming. I was unsure about who Arlene was, but that was fine and not a stressor for me. I never heard what the second lady was having for lunch, and it was nice for me to experience letting go, just realizing that it was fine that I did not find out that information. The picture was still complete in its own way. That is something I struggle with so much, because my OCD manifests mostly with like needing to know information. So like I'll listen to somebody's boring story about going to the mall and it'll just strike me, I need to know where they parked. Where did you park? Like which store did you go on first? I don't care, but my brain is like, ask it, ask it, ask it. So this kind of thing would drive me crazy. I'd be like, who's Arlene? And like, what is that person eating? I need to know what that person's eating. And if somebody sends me a text with exclamation points, I have to go and I have to count every single one so I know, all right, that's 6 exclamation points. And then I don't do anything with that information, and it's useless. But yeah, I'm definitely still working on looking at something as being a complete picture without me having every little detail about it. It's really hard to live with. I love this bit about old people. Scanning around a bit, I realized that most people in the restaurant were old, which was nice for me because I often feel my happiest when I am surrounded by the elderly. But this was a lot of old people. The wish for old people seemed to have bloomed too heavy for the stock, and everyone was worrying about the bathroom key. I had a brief moment of panic where I jarred myself by wondering if I was actually in a dream, but it passed in a flash, and I was steady again and doing my eavesdropping that I love to do. Oh, I love to eavesdrop. I spend so much of my life by myself, and I know I talk about this all the time. But I am alone like 90% of the time, and I've done a lot of solo travel. And, part of like being alone while you're traveling is just like, listening to other people around you because there's not really much else to stimulate you in, like, say you're on a train or something. And like if you can't concentrate on your book or whatever, you're just listening to other conversations. So I love that she's so kind to herself about it. Like it's something nice she's doing for herself, doing the eavesdropping that I love to do. Yeah, and the wish for old people had bloomed too heavy for the stock. Just made me laugh. There was a time when eating alone in a restaurant would have caused me to do a rude inventory of all that I'd not accomplished or all that I had ruined. But now I knew that even though I had come here alone, it was not actually a problem, and at that moment, I did not have to worry about anything at all. I wrote this poem when I was 17, and I called it Alone is Not a Sentence, meaning two things. Like, alone is not a death sentence, it's not a life sentence, it's not a state of being that has to be a punishment, or that even has to last forever. And it's also not a sentence, like, alone, just that word by itself does not define my entire existence. So, yeah, I can relate. Eating alone in a restaurant, it can bring up some things about, like, ways that you failed, but then if you look at it a different way, you go, well, I just really want to be here right now and I want to eat this meal. And actually, there's nothing wrong. Okay. So I like this. This is called Single and Waiting for a Reply. My friends say that maybe he did not write back because he is very busy. Then I think, I am never too busy for love and starting lives. And then because I do not want it to be a rejection, I think maybe he is busy and that perhaps I do not really know what it is like to be busy. And then I think that perhaps I am not very successful. Maybe I do not know what it is to be really actually busy, but I think I do know. Which of course is dispiriting because it means that he is not more busy than I, which means you know what. Yeah, that spiral. Oh my god, how many times have I been waiting for a text from someone, and I think it would not take me days to respond to somebody that I was into. If I thought there was any kind of a future with someone, or if I had any interest in finding that out, it just simply wouldn't take me days to answer. So then you think, can they really just be that busy? No. And she said during the show that she didn't really want to read anything from the single section, and she didn't really want to talk about that phase of her life anymore because now she's in the true love phase. And it made me sad that people kind of forget what it's like when they pair up with someone. They seem to just forget or want to avoid ever thinking about that phase of their life again. It makes me feel like really invisible because I'm very much in that phase of my life where I don't know if I will ever find love. And I also want that because I don't know if I'll ever find it. I would like to believe that this state of being alone, is not bad, or something to not want to look back at memories of. So yeah, that bummed me out because I thought, damn, I'm trying to feel better about the fact that I might be alone forever. I don't want my like singlehood to be something that people look at and pity. I would never want that. And please don't pity me. I'm hopeful that love is something that could happen. I know it's real because I feel love for people, but it's okay if like romantic love doesn't happen for me. And something I'm working on is letting go of bitterness of seeing other people experience it, because people tell you like just get involved in all the other things in your life and you'll be so into your passions, your hobbies and whatever, that you don't need that, like you don't need that to be fulfilled. And then I just say, well, what about the people who have all of those things? What about the people who are fulfilled in every area of their life and have love as well? Like, wouldn't that be nice? But it doesn't happen for all of us. So I will continue to talk about it and be that voice, as pathetic as some people might think that I am. Screw you, I'm not. I just want somebody to speak up about what it's actually like and not be afraid. I kind of want to read this whole thing about this dog because I really liked it. Let's see if I can do it. It's called Storm. In Los Angeles, there is a house on a triangle-shaped plot that sticks into the road where two streets meet. On this V-shaped plot is an old Spanish-style house and a proud husky who roams the big triangle. It is normal to be wary of a large dog who is basically a wolf, but when I used to smoke pot, I forgot that it was normal to be wary, and one day as I was walking by the triangle, I saw the animal, and I stuck my hand through the fence so that I could feel its face. The dog was peaceful and licked my palm with its pink tongue, and I felt for its necklace so that I could see what it was called. The dog was named Storm, which is wonderfully serious, and it made my day to know this. Day after day I would visit this dog Storm. I would say, "Hi Storm," and sometimes she would come right over, and sometimes it would take longer if she was already doing something, or sometimes someone else would be there visiting her through the fence. One afternoon I was wasting time on the computer looking at old sweatshirts for sale. I do not tolerate junk, but I do love treasures. I saw that there was a used but pristine white sweatshirt, and in a dark, dusky blue right in the center of the chest it had been embroidered with the word Storm. I purchased it right away, and I waited for a few days until it came. I do not have any merchandise from concerts or movies except one huge t-shirt from a Paul Simon concert that my parents took me to when I was 8 years old. It was my first concert ever, and I was so overstimulated and unregulated that the moment I saw all the lights and heard the horns, I threw up right away and had to spend the whole concert in the first aid tent with my mother and her well-hidden disappointment. From the tent we heard the muffled performance of Bridge Over Troubled Water, and my mother said wistfully, "I love this song." The only other merchandise I have is this sweatshirt for Storm, and when it arrived I put it on right away and walked over to her house. If her owner had been watching, he would have seen a non-barfing grown woman come up to his fence and call to his dog. Then he may have heard this woman say, "I'm your biggest fan, Storm, see?" And he would see that this woman was wearing an embroidered sweatshirt with the name of his dog. I was pointing at the word and trying to get Storm to notice, but she didn't seem to care. And it almost hurt my feelings, but then I remembered that dogs cannot read, like they cannot even recognize symbols, and I felt relieved that she was not displeased by my adoration, but that she simply could not read. Because of Storm, I was able to say and believe, "It's not personal," during a time of my life when all connections and rejections felt so intensely personal, and I felt glad to know myself as neither rejected nor accepted, just the type of person who would make time in her day to visit a dog. Love that. And when everything feels so personal, this is another instance of like needing neutrality, where maybe I'm not being rejected and maybe I'm not being like super accepted. Maybe I'm just me, just doing something that I wanted to do. Like maybe it's just a fact about me that I'm the type of person that would go and visit this dog with its name on my shirt. And that's enough. There's this bit about her friend giving her a pamphlet about how to find your soulmate. And she says, "I was interested to see what my answers were, and I thought that it was dear of me and not pathetic at all, in truth. I said to myself, 'Are you lying to yourself?' I trusted myself not to lie if I was saying that I did not want to lie to myself. I thought that if any part of me was embarrassed about filling out a pamphlet in my bed, that I should not do it, and that if by any chance the pamphlet was charged with a kind of magic, that this magic would certainly not give me its power if I was acting embarrassed by it. I did a check-over of myself, and I had only a small moment of embarrassment, and it passed so quickly that I had no remaining concerns." I love how she says that it was dear of me. To think that something that you do is very dear is just so precious. I think of all the love that I have given other people and how very little I've given myself. I so many times have thought, this trait of this person is so endearing, this little thing they do is just so endearing. Do I ever think that about myself? No, because I'm taken over by this a couple of things, like I'm trash and useless and garbage, and also if I think something nice about myself, then that's really egotistical and conceited, and I don't want to be that way. And also I don't deserve to feel that way because I'm trash. So these are some of the thoughts that spiral. And I really like the idea of thinking that something you do is very dear. And then also, just the bit about embarrassment was funny. Like, God, embarrassment is probably my number one emotion. Is embarrassment. Isn't that one of the new emotions in the new Inside Out movie? That one has had total control over my control panel for most of my life. I will like be sitting home alone and feel so humiliated about everything, and that is literally my downfall. It is the worst. Stops me from a lot of things. So anyway, I liked that mention. Oh, this is this great part where she's talking about before she and her husband were dating, and they had just recently met. We had been in the front seat of a car in the Arctic Circle, parked in a supermarket parking lot. Our mutual friends were in the back seat. You moved a little bit, and the air delivered something my way, and I, my mammal self, smelled the air, and my mouth filled with spit that my system made, and my mind sat up straight and asked, what is that food? I want my food. What is that food? Why is there food here? That was so great. Like, and the way that she put it with the italics and slashes there. That is how it feels. that is how it feels, and I'm always looking for writing to convey just the truth of how some experience feels without being so obvious. Kind of strip it down to its bare bones. What does that feel like when you know, like you've met somebody and you just know, oh, this person's going to be somebody to me, or I want them to be someone to me. And we have that like chemical reaction to somebody else. I guess that's why they call it chemistry. But God, when somebody smells good, forget about it. I mean, I become definitely an animal, and also just a complete maniac who has no like grip on reality anymore. Like, if you smell good, oh, just thank you for smelling so good. Ooh, this part hit. In the night that goes with this day, I have to do a show. I am not in what you might call fighting form. In the bar before the show, I start to get really sad and frightened that I actually cannot do this. It is not stage fright. It is fear of wanting the life that I am starting to possibly get. I want what I have, and I think, what if I actually cannot do this? What if I get what I want, and it just overloads me, and I malfunction because I am not normal? Scared of actually having the life that you wanted. I think about this a lot because I used to have dreams. I used to have all these big dreams, and then I accomplished a lot of these things and then was still depressed. So I've gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, there's no point in accomplishing anything. There's no point in having dreams and fulfilling them, because you just stay at the same spot even after. And so I fear, like, imagining a life for myself that I want and then actually getting that life. Like, how could I possibly cope with it? Because my history points to the truth that I would get something good and then still be sad. So I have this thought of, like, will I always be sad even when I'm happy? Or even when on paper I should be happy? I go back to my house and I cry right as I enter the living room, which is not a new experience for the dog. I just liked that because, oh my god, how much have my cats had to put up with? Animals are just the best. So Sorry, did you want me to clear my throat again? Because I can do that for you. I've been talking for so long. Okay. Ooh, okay, I always feel this in relationships. I get really neurotic about this. She has to go on a work trip to New York City, and she's certain that, like, something really bad is going to happen to her relationship if she goes on this trip. In New York City, I was sure that my absence, which was more than just leaving the room, which was a boat ride and a train ride and an elevator and a hotel away from you, would make something tragic happen. I was in New York City being interviewed about my performance as a cartoon dog, and I was saying over and over again how important it is to see a female character who is confident and not sorry about that at all, and confident but still love-struck. And when the interview was over, it was like my whole body started gagging and my intrusive thoughts would trapeze and fail in their flights, and it was an acrobatic bloodbath in my mind. So, yeah, I always feel this in relationships, like I disappear if I'm not in front of them. Like I cease to exist if I'm not right in front of their face, because this has been proven to me so many times, because I've been cheated on and, this, that, and the other. So I feel like I have to always be right in their face, or else they have a very short attention span, and they forget about me. So the idea of going on a trip away from this person, I completely get the anxiety of that. It says something like, this is still her thoughts: something bad will happen. Something bad will happen and you are not lovable. Something bad will happen to prove that you are not lovable, but because you are not lovable, you will not be told the truth about the betrayal. The only use that people can comprehend for you is that you are some sort of anchor, some sort of dead weight made out of a material that gives people cancer, I bet. And you will be lied to in all of the ways that lies can occur, by omission, to your face, because it is just easier to leave things out for your own good, or on purpose because you deserve it by being such a weak drip. And you will see evidence of how much you truly suck, because when you start sniffing around for lies, you will make people angry, and they will say that nothing is wrong, and you are making a fine situation into a bad one, and this is such a waste, and you are a disappointment, and why would a person do something like this? And the answer that they will want is that you did it because you are crazy. No, I'm going to read the next paragraph too. But you know that you are not crazy. You are just absolutely crazed, because you are so terribly afraid, and it is turning your mind into a stage on which the curtain is going up and down so fast, like a mouth opening and closing, and someone to the side of the stage is playing a loopy and sadistic tune on the ivories, and the person on the stage is you, but with a huge head, and she has no lines, but is just screaming as the curtain rips up and falls down and rips up and falls down. Great way to describe relationship anxiety. And also, relationship OCD is a very, very difficult thing to live with, where you are constantly, like, believing that the person is going to leave you, and you're questioning everything. It's very self-sabotaging. But then she goes on to say, like, nothing bad did happen, all the bad things that she was imagining. So much bad had happened to me in my mind while I was in New York City, but it only came from inside, and it was only in the past. That was not the best news, but it was sort of good, because it was like, okay, we can move her because we know where the injury is. You are not supposed to move a hurt person when you do not know where the injury is. You can kill them by moving them, or paralyze them by moving them. You have to understand that they are down, but they are not out. I was down in New York City. I was out of my mind, inside of my mind, but I was not a lost cause. I really like that image of knowing where the injury is, and I think that's like what a lot of mental health work is about. You know, I've been doing so much, like, different kinds of therapy and treatment and tests and things, and EMDR, and like trying to get to the root of everything. And when you do, and you see where the hurt comes from, then it's easier to move forward. And yeah, no, I'm going to leave my sentence there. Ugh, this bit was so beautiful. When they're still at, like, the beginning of their relationship, and she says, you were looking straight ahead, and they were on a boat, You were looking straight ahead and you started to go fast. You said without any prompting, "You just make me really happy. You just make me really happy. I will always be sorry for the ways I terrorized myself, and it ran onto you. But I also know that for a while, I really could not do anything but what I was doing. I was limited by injury." And that is how it feels to feel with mental illness and still want love and try to find it and tell yourself that you're worthy of it when your brain is telling you that you're not. And yeah, what is it like to have somebody just say that? "You make me really happy." And it's like that moment, it meant so much to me because when you do have anxiety and if you have any like self-loathing, you get so wrapped in that as being the reality. You're so convinced that this is the reality and this is what everybody else is seeing too. And then for somebody to say something like "you just make me really happy," it's just like, it snaps you out of it for a second where you go, what? Is there a whole other reality that I didn't know about? It's just so vastly different from the way that you've been thinking. Oh my god, okay, this part, she read this essay out during this show, and this part made me laugh, like a huge snorting laugh. She's talking about the movie Ghostbusters, and I've actually never seen it. I know that that's crazy. But it says, "Somehow the female student is also horny about the whole thing, but for no reason that I could detect, and coming from someone who has literally been able to become horny over things like marshes swelling with high tide, unpacking boxes in a new house, and also things like cruel, traditionally unattractive men, and also cruel, traditionally attractive men, and many other types of men and occurrences in the natural world like volcanoes and mosses, it is telling that I just could not crack the code on this one. Like, why is she into him?" When she said the traditionally unattractive men and also cruel, traditionally attractive men, like, it doesn't matter. It's just, if you are a cruel man, whether you are considered attractive or not, I've probably been horny about you. And God, it was one of those laughs that's like, oh no, why am I like this? But I'm glad somebody said it. I looked at the screen and saw the green ghost named Slimer slamming down discarded room service while also being dead and dripping with ectoplasmic gunk. I thought about how much I feel like Slimer sometimes. Driven, but technically dead, obsessed with room service and easily agitated, afraid of being thrown back into a darker realm, hoping to just live with the alive people who think that I am gross and that I make every situation about myself. This is what happens when a ghost is anywhere. It is all about them. I was like, me. Just live with the alive people who think I am gross and make every situation about myself. It hurts. Oh, okay, I loved this whole chapter, the raccoon. I thought this was really beautiful. "We caught the raccoon in the night after the house guest said he heard it trying to open the door. I did not want to see it in the cage because I specifically did not want to see his soft body and arms like he had put on a sweater before this happened. You put on a sweater to do something normal, like going to the post office or walking from a smaller room into a larger room in your home in the winter. To put on your sweater, to do that kind act for yourself, expecting nothing but to move and observe and do an easy task, and then to be in fact lured into a metal trap with a slanted door. I did not want to deal with that image. I did not want to see a raccoon with the little hands and the naturally expectant mask and perfect face." Raccoon's okay. He's fine. They released him. And she named him Justin. But I love that image of the raccoon putting a sweater on right before this happened. Like, oh, just gotta get my little sweater on, and oh crap, now I'm in a cage. And calling that a kind act for yourself. Again, I love the way that she talks about self-love and self-care. Oh, I also love how heated she gets about people when they're disrespectful. Like, there's this guy who comes to her house and keeps leaving his tea bags on the table. Like, he'll take the wet tea bag and put it down. It's so disgusting, and that sort of thing just makes me never want to have anybody at my house. The idea that I would go to a man's house while he is all day, all night growing another life form inside of his own body, and that I would leave small, hot, wet bags on his side tables and in drained cups that will get left on the coffee table, as if the great mystery itself will somehow seize the small, hot, wet bags at any moment and waft them into infinity, well, that is totally preposterous. It is me, sir. I am the great mystery that makes your small, hot, wet bags invisible, and infinity is a perfect way to describe where the silence of my repeated labors deposits itself, somewhere between the trash can and the sink. Oh, you just get so mad because it's like it feels so weird to tell a friend, could you just not do that thing that like feels really disrespectful? Because then there's like a weird moment and you don't want to do that. Oh, what is this? Beautiful idea. Oh yeah. So she read this one aloud as well. It's called Birth Visualization of Stone House, and it's this idea that there is this house where everybody from her family, when they die, they can hang out in this house, and they welcome every new birth there as well. It says, all of the people who love me, all of my family who have loved me have never left me. They gather from their other dimensions and they make a small family party. They prepare all of the food and they do all of the talking. They are not visiting, they have descended into a place that exists as a perpetual home for anyone in our family ever. We come here to be born, to give birth, to die, and then when we are dead, we attend all events. All of my dead relatives proclaim, with their presence here, that we are an unbroken group, and they say, we have always been loving you, and we have never left you. Oh, it's just, yeah, a really beautiful image. And then looking at it as this cycle, and not being afraid of death, but that it is, you are just part of this cycle. It says, my beloved dead relax in the living room of our eternal family house, a domain that has welcomed me twice, once as a baby, once as a mother, and will finally host me one day too. Oh, it's just lovely. I like to imagine death as not a lonely thing at all. Oh, there's this part about like collecting rocks and shells, and why do we do that? If you take the rock or the smooth down glass and you put it on your windowsill and you accumulate a lot, people will think, oh, okay, she's into basic whimsy. She's into blissing out and taking totems from when she was like breathing deeply by the sea. And what is hard is that even though you did think that the rectangular rock was a find of sorts, the lineup of detritus from the beach is just proof that you were stressed about whether or not to take something, and so you took, and then you took again, and now when you go to look out your window, you see all of this disconnected, unenchanted beach flotsam. Oh god, I have so many freaking rocks and shells, and I tell myself I'm gonna write down where these things are from somehow. I'm gonna mark like, why is this rock so special? And then I don't do it, and then I don't remember where the rock is from. And in the moment, it's so special and so perfect, and you just think, I've got to take this. But then I also feel bad about taking it, and oh. What do you do? How do you not do it? Is it bad to do it? I don't know. Okay, this part was a little bit sad. I honestly like the kitchen and I love being in there, but then I ask myself, yes, but why do you like the kitchen? For example, don't you remember in your 20s when you thought you liked bikinis, but then you felt like a heartless victor over yourself when you could successfully wear one? Because remember how you felt heartless? Because you had vanquished your own self? Because you had shamed yourself into eating less so that you could look how you thought you should look in the bikini? You experienced your win standing high atop a grotesque mound of your own massacred self-esteem and sweetness. Remember that bikini time? Why do you really like it in this kitchen? Oh my god, that image of vanquishing yourself. Like when you do this to yourself, when you try to make yourself conform in any type of way, you are then standing, I love this image, standing on top of this grotesque mound of your own massacred self-esteem and sweetness. Maybe picture it that way and you won't do it as much. Sometimes I feel that I am under surveillance for just even having a life cycle and life form. And it feels bad, like I cannot really feel a sense of true privacy. Like even when I am by myself in the bathroom, there is another presence that sees my face skin or my butt shape and remarks flatly, there, right there, that is where your worth is changing. I just do not like it, and sometimes I get so tired of it and so upset by the giant army of panicking people who are trying to fight the inevitable that I say, okay, what are the options for just skipping this whole thing and dwelling in permissible oldness? I feel a shameful relief when I say, okay, fuck it, let's go crone. I have this shirt that says, my other body is a withered old crone. God, she just sums it up great there in that paragraph that, like, there's so much pressure to be young and to look a certain way, and, like, can we just skip to the part where we descend into being an old crone and it just doesn't matter because, like, we're so far gone into oldness that, like, there's no point in doing wrinkle creams anymore or getting work done. It's just, you're an old crone. And that idea of there being somebody watching you in your bathroom even when it's just you, that is so sad. And I am always thinking about other people's opinions even when there's nobody there. Oh, okay, this whole part about her grandmother is really sad. So her grandmother is losing her memory, and she says one day that, like, she thinks her grandfather has died, and it's true. It says she was not wrong, he did die, but 80 or more years ago, but still he did die, and that is still sad. And this is her grappling with that. She sat on the chair by the telephone, looking as sorrowful and small as the last shrimp in the ocean. She was very graceful in her grief. In her life before, when her mind was still in its bowl, she had properly grieved her grandfather, and had eventually surpassed the burn of new loss. It seemed cruel to me that we patiently live through periods of anguish and shock when we lose our family members, and we keep facing it, believing that activity and time will settle it all down for us. We make a deal with fate. I'll keep this flame that signifies the one you took. I will let it scorch me in my heart if you let it die down naturally, and eventually there will just be a scar on my heart, and I will always know what I have lost. But by then, I will feel only the emptiness, not the terrible scald. I will let the fire of the loss run its course. This is the debt I will pay, so that I can have a more bearable sadness. It is so cruel to get to that point in your life when you've experienced so much grief, because nobody will get to the end of their life and not experience grief. And then have to relive it because you're losing your memory. So you're losing yourself, you're losing your past and your memories, and this adding salt to the wound is like you're remembering, oh my god, this person I loved is dead, and it's as if you're experiencing it for the very first time. I just think that is so horrible. And there's a couple more quotes from that. But on that morning that I visited, it seemed that because my grandmother was dwelling in the in-between, where memories are not sorted anymore, but are more like scents and smells and half-announcements, the full heat of the loss had returned and set itself once again upon our miniature matriarch, who herself had returned to her adolescent weight. It struck me as unfair. She had paid the price already. She had harbored the flame until it shrank to aloneness, until it had shrunk to the notion of without. Your most tender loves, and therefore your richest heartbreaks, stay with you like at the very toe of your shoe. Her sadness was like a cat at her foot, and it was with her now. I guess there is a time when the deal with fate runs out, and the mind loosens, and the losses come back in bright color, and without warning, and you can say and know, my grandfather died, with as much deep, true, vascular sadness as you felt when you were young, but you are actually in your bathrobe, and you are 92, and now you are kind of gone, but it is weirdly back. Life can be so cruel. But I guess, like, if there was no beauty, there would be no cruelty. Like, the beautiful thing that we had, which is love for another person, the cruelty is having them taken away, and then having that grief come back up completely fresh later if we lose our memory. A year after my grandmother experienced the renewed death of her own grandfather, my father told me over breakfast, over the phone, that she Wow. Over the phone that my grandmother did slump and sleep at breakfast, but she did not die right then. She is dimming into death, but it is a relief that she is not in pain, good that she is not ever mean or agitated, and is being rocked and rocked slowly into the next level. As she is cradled by the swaying of her gentle departure, she experiences waves of her life from before. Some are her heartbreaks, some are her achievements and greatest qualities, like being a wonderful host, like being able to be so happy by the sight of a new life. I love that image of a gentle death. And it is a very specific type of grief to watch somebody suffer and pass away from dementia, which is how I lost my grandmother. And there's the initial struggle where they know that it's happening, and they're scared. And then as time goes on and they forget more and more, there is this kind of relief where you know that they're not hurting anymore in their mind. They've entered this new phase, and then you can look at it as this gentle rocking into the next phase. And I always remember my grandma, when I would visit her, she didn't know who I was anymore, but she would always have this look on her face when she saw me, and she would touch my face and say, "You're so beautiful." And I would say, "Well, I got it from you. You're my grandma." And I just remember her being like, having this cheeky little smile, like, "Oh, stop. No way." She was a very, very beautiful woman, and I think knew that. And it was just, yeah, special to know, like, some part of her, like her love of beauty, was still there, even if she didn't know who I was. Yeah, so that whole chapter got me pretty good. So I'm going to leave it at that. That is about the end. And I'll point out on the back, there's a quote from George Saunders, and it said, "This book is something new and wonderful. It made me remember I was alive." That's actually a quote about Little Weirds, but I love that George Saunders and Jenny Slate know each other, and it's like, oh, it just blows my mind, because he is one of my all-time favorite writers. And on one of her tour dates, he was there, and it was in California, so it was like, oh, I'm not going to make it to that one, but how cool would that have been? Anyway, that is it for now. My jaw hurts from talking. I will see you all next time, and until then, happy reading.